Hi there. This is a little bit of a chat about drawing on the right side of the brain. The book, great book by Betty Edwards. So I picked this book up just recently from a op shop or thrift shop. And I've always wanted to have a look at this book, but kind of never did. And then, it's got some great ideas and exercises and things. And then I got a bit overwhelmed with all that there was on offer in here. And so I went on YouTube and there's wonderful people offering, the different exercises. So I had a good go at that. And then I'm slowly now going back through the book. It's probably just how my mind works, really. But I have come to the point, this here is a window sort of viewfinder kind of thing. It's got a bit of a line on it, which I just made up. Probably a square one is better than a semi-roundy one. But anyway, so yeah, the book is really, really good. But I wanted to just go over a few things, just probably even for my own mind. I've been doing some videos with the exercises, and I've been starting to notice something myself. So Betty Edwards, or Dr. Betty Edwards now, I mean, she's actually in her sort of late 90s, actually, and she's still doing this work. So she's absolutely amazing. So she has something. But yeah, so in 1979, she brought the book into being, and she was actually teaching children how to paint and draw. And she noticed that there was a bit of a correlation between reading and drawing, and that our education system is dealing with this, what she calls the L mode, or the left hemisphere of the brain, but we'll carry on calling it L mode, and the other mode is R mode, which is the right hemisphere of the brain. And so she was very interested in neuroscience and cerebral hemisphere research, and particularly Dr. Roger W. Sperry and his work around the hemispheres of the brain and what the different hemispheres of the brain focuses on. So our education system really favors L mode because, and it kind of, you can see why it happens, but because we can measure it. And with tests, we want to test everything. And our whole focus in our modern world is, testing and measuring. It's just one way of being, but actually we do need both. And so L mode looks at analytical thought. It's got logical thinking. It likes to make sense of things. It's the sciences, focuses on maths, verbal languages. It has words. It's a place in the brain where all the words kind of happen, or mostly words. It's where writing happens. Things are sequential, step by step. Everything has its place, and a very balancing place, and likes to do lists, and not really a big fan of change, and wants the absolute flat truth of something. So that's just some things I've picked up from L mode. And on the other side, and not that they're against each other, but we do need both. And so the R mode has that wonderful visual thinking and that holistic way of thinking, and also that awareness of spatial problems and working out spatial problems. Our intuition, and is okay. The R mode is okay with nothingness. Is just okay with being, I suppose, in a meditative state. In that, to hold nothing. It doesn't have to have moments filled. So, of course, this is also the place with art and music, intricate patterns and intricate things and complexity. It doesn't mind those things. It doesn't mind that those things change. So creativity, this is, and it's okay with that there's no speech. So in that I mean that this isn't the part of the brain that deals with speech. And so often when we're trying to describe this state, we have no words. And I noticed in the videos that I've just been doing, often there comes this moment where there's just quiet, and I've almost, and I can hear my breath going deeper. And so, yeah, this is kind of just such an interesting shift that's happening. I can actually literally, I mean, I know myself a little bit, and I'm sure other people, because they don't know me, will also see this happening as that bit of a shift going over. So, and you know, that whole, the perceptions and being aware of perceptions, and global thinking of something as the whole, and that comes sort of to the, when you're drawing anyway, it comes towards the end. You start seeing all, you know, firstly you see the edges, and then you start seeing the spaces, and then you start seeing, you know, the relationship between things. Then you start seeing light and shadow, and then there's this moment, there's this ping, if you like, where you start seeing the whole, seeing the thing as it really, really is. And those are the 5 skills of perception that we actually need when we're drawing. They're not actually drawing skills that somebody has the ability or they don't have the ability. These are actually learnable skills that we can all have, and it's a way of seeing, actually. So it's a perception of the edges of something. It's the perception of space. It's the perception of the relationships between things. It's the perception of light and shadow, and the perception of the whole. So I just thought that was really, really interesting. And I'm just going to turn my pages over. So I've done quite a bit of filming. We've already gone over most of that. So, and if you're interested, please have a look on the YouTube channel. So again, this was looking at, so how this is used is, so I would put that on the viewfinder. I'm sorry, the light's playing with that. And then I would just draw around that there. And then I'd take the bit of plant away. And then you can hardly see this actually. I'm sorry about that. I'll try and bring it down. I don't know if that will, might not like the focusing, but you can't really see it. So this is on a graphited piece of paper, and you kind of, you have it there, and so you just take yourself through, first off, finding the edges, and it's such an interesting thing. You know, just seeing the edges, and you can actually use the rubber to help get rid of what's not required there. So I'm going to just turn my page over. So then this is you know, space, exploring the space, again doing the same thing, and you would just, you know, having drawn it on there, and then this goes on there, and then you actually just literally draw that negative, you know, the shapes. There's no, you know, there's no words for it really, but and so, yeah, because there's no words for these shapes, the left brain, the left mode brain actually says, oh well, yeah, I don't need to do this because that's not something I'm interested in. And so that's by looking at the shapes, and because they're odd, it can't categorize, it can't label them, and so it lets go, and it allows R mode to come in. So negative space is actually a lot more important, and in a way it's more real. Yeah, so, and it's kind of also focusing on the negative space is really helpful when, you know, dealing with that whole thing about foreshortening, which can happen. You know, we can see that that's foreshortened, so like that, but it's very hard to draw that. But actually doing negative spaces is very helpful for that. I'm actually just going over these because I actually didn't do the filming. I must have got really lost in space, if you like, and didn't do any filming. So it's absolutely fine. But once again, this is the interspace, and it's using a unit. So this is where, so these with this pair of scissors, of course, they're sort of semi-identical. Again, I had used my viewfinder, and what you do with it is you find a unit. So like it could be this little bit of a unit of length. So that there is a unit of length, and you make that the first unit, that there. And so from there, you've then got the code as to, well, then that must be, if that's that, that's to there. And so you can, I'm not explaining it very well. It's because it's an R mode kind of thing. But yeah, kind of helpful to know. So that there is a unit. So that then when I'm looking at the scissors, I can actually know how far to go up. And I'm going to leave that there because I don't want to. I feel like I've gone off the reservation in my discussions. And yeah, there's some, then the next exercises start getting a little bit more juicy. But it's interesting if you want to know how to kind of say to your right hand mode of the brain, help it, you can invite it in. And so some of these things, I found it really quite funny. So the perception around edges, okay, which is the first one, around edges and doing contour drawings. So instantly you can say the L mode says, that's too complicated and it's too slow, and I'm more interested in naming things, and this is just too slow. And so it sort of will switch itself off, and it's that switching off which then allows the R mode to come in. With spaces, when you're doing spaces like negative space or the interspace, the L mode will say, I don't need to deal with this. I don't deal with nothing. So when it's an interspace, so like interspace is like inside this this holder's circles, drawing that and getting to know that, the L mode brain, part of the brain, says that's not important. I'm not going to deal with that. So I'm not that I don't need to. This is not important enough for me, and will also just switch off. And in that switching off, that shape can't be named, and so well, I'm not going to be involved in that, or they're in relationships, and this is where we have perspective and proportion. How are things in relationship? Like how is this shape here in relationship to this, and where does it all belong, and the perspective and all of that. And what it says is it's too paradoxical. Don't let me, don't try and tell me that, this is slanting. If you try to draw it like that, don't try and tell. I know how things work, and you can't tell me. Say for example, a person in the distance, that they're half the size that they are. So all of these things sort of baffle the L mode, and it's just shunts itself out. It says, I can't quantify that, and so I'm not going to play that game. It doesn't fit this. All of this stuff doesn't fit with what I know, so I'm out of here, kind of thing. And like sometimes I might even know people who are a bit like this. It's so fascinating, isn't it? By the way, this came from, I've put in the link below, Betty Edwards actually has a blog at 98. I am so proud of her, and this was one of the articles, and I've put the details in the description below. So the other one is light and dark. So I'm just naming these because I've heard myself say these kind of things. It's too complicated complicated. And things keep changing. So, and it's not useful. So I'm not going to look at it. I found that really interesting when I was doing the light and dark journal. Things changed, why was I looking at it? And some people were really, really interested in those exercises that we were doing. And that was just purely off the cuff, all the light and dark journal. So I think probably the work of being a little bit creative online is actually been probably in the R mode. And so that's why I find sometimes it go off a little bit on a tangent. Or the other side is I just don't talk. And it's been important to have some nice music. So I've been doing my editing with an editing software that has sort of nicer music because of that. So it's amazing how I've kind of made some decisions because of it. And now this perception of the gestalt, or how things really are, or the whole of things, how, and so you have all the others and they all come together. But the L mode, when you're in L mode, it says, no, there's too many parts. I can't pay attention to all of this. I can't name them all. I'm just going to name it the whole thing and the job's done. And so, I'm just going to name this a pair of scissors and that's it. Job's done. Yeah. And so it just shifts then. You can then R mode, which is a bit slower and more gentle, can come in and just, it's that timelessness. And I'm interested in that from the Flow Network's perspective. So, I'll leave it on that page there. So there you go. I know it was just a brief around the world in 30 days kind of little chat, but I just really wanted to share a little bit about how that all was and how things have been going. And I really recommend having a go at some of the exercises. It's really, really interesting. And I think in our times that we've got, I think it's really a good thing to start looking at. Anyway, hey, thanks for your time and hope you've enjoyed this. Bye.